with us, and I've met a lot of you, but for those I haven't, my name is Greg Crawford. And for those who can't be with us today, we are streaming the service, so technology is a wonderful thing in that regard. But we do spare a thought that for those who can't join us, but we know they are connected in the same love and the same sorrow that all of you face today as you gather. The universe, it does seem to let the faults and misgivings and sufferings of humans go on. And it's we who are tested in a manner which causes us to rise above the occasion. Life seemingly like a mist that appears for just a day and then disappears tomorrow. And all that we are, it can so quickly fade away. However, wherever a beautiful spirit has been, they do leave a trail of beautiful and happy memories. There is a reality we face today, and the reality is we can only fade away if those who love us stop remembering or stop speaking of us. A person who goes on living in the heart of his family and friends is a person who has lived well. And you come together today as family and in friendship to say all that Mark Anthony McHenry was and what he did. It cannot be wiped away and it cannot be destroyed. Yes, today as you recall all that Mark was and what you shared together, tears can mingle with smiles. All of us, we are the sum total of the experiences that we have shared with others. All of us are individuals. We are unique in character and in personality. But then we combine our skills and our qualities with those we love. And by this, we become even more. Mark applied himself, and he succeeded. Along the way, he gave of himself to family, to friends, to his interests and his passions. In honouring Mark's life, you see he gave so much. So yes, you do grieve a great loss. However, in honouring all that Mark gave, you see you have so much to be thankful for. This loss and appreciation bring the mixed emotions of this day. The feelings of loss, they never leave us. But time allows the joy of having Mark as part of your life to outshine your grief. And this life, it takes us along so many paths. Some we take by choice. We are in control. Other paths we take can only be determined by other influences, but always they are leading us on towards our destiny. Across the hours, the days and the years of his life, Mark did all of those things that we sometimes and so often we take for granted. But now we see how precious those moments were. As you recall these moments and how Mark's life unfolded, you see what people do to make it through. You can testify to the vastness of their emotions and feelings. You can see the breadth of their toils, the consistency of their nature, even the perseverance of their will as they strive to achieve their goals. And you see the changes that take place as the years fly by. Life always flows as we use the time we have. And from birth to death, only what is in between is important. Mark leaves this imperfect world, but the beautiful spirit of his life, this now remains with you. History tells us we remember far beyond the years of life. It tells us a good person's influence even crosses generations. Today is really a beginning. It is the start of remembering Mark's history, a history he wrote into your hearts and minds by how he lived. And as we share our words of tribute today, know there is so much more. All of you hold the colour, the shade and the depth of Mark's life. You are now indeed the very temples of his memory. So let's share a few of those memories today, because today certainly is about memory. Right from the start, from the word go, it was said to me, Mark was different. He was born face first, so he come into the world with a black and blue face, I believe. I bet you remember that well. His neck was almost broken, so he certainly battled his way here. But Mark went on being different. He was again described to me by Jim, and I thought it was a lovely way to describe it, an honest dreamer, a wanderer, and he certainly was a man who marched to the beat of his own drum. He loved life and lived each moment to the fullest. And is that not life? Mark was born here in Ballarat on August 12th, 1968. Of course, he is the loved son of Sandra and Bill McHenry. But Jim came into his life as a stepdad, and Jim raised him through many years, and he was a real father figure to Mark. He grew up with his two brothers, Craig and Jamie, and his sister, Regina. Mark loved his family, and over the years he shared a lot with them. Even though Mark was a wanderer, he did stay in touch with his family. Not that he ever let you get much of a word in when that happened, but he did stay in touch. When the school years come around, Mark attended St Columbus, and then he went on to North Tech. And one thing, of course, Mark excelled at school, it was wagging it. Spent a lot of time down the Pines, it was. But if he wasn't at school, he was often down at the Bridge Mall entertaining people with his break dancing and his singing. Because part of Mark's nature was also a good dry sense of humour. And by his nature, he made many friends. And they were friends that he really loved and he really valued. When Mark left school, he was an apprentice chef, and he worked in different forms of catering and hospitality for most of the rest of his life. He did have some other jobs, but that was the main thing he did. As a young lad, of course, he played guitar, and he was part of a band named Charisma, and they won Battle of the Bands in 1992, so they must have been not too bad at all. Mark ended up doing solo work, playing guitar and singing Bon Jovi songs and Michael Jackson songs. He was just really a lad of 16 or 17 when he started the Wanders. And he started off just by wandering Melbourne. But then he began to range out further. He got right up to Darwin, then he got across to the mines in Katherine, and he worked as a cook in the mines, and I believe it was in Katherine that he met Naomi, and it was there they started up a relationship. They began to travel around together. They covered a lot of Australia and spent time in Coffs Harbour, Port Macquarie, Broken Hill. While in Port Macquarie, Their beautiful daughter, Georgia, was born in 2005. And Georgia became centre stage in Mark's life. There is no doubt he loved her totally and he loved her dearly. Mark actually worked in sales for a while, and he was gifted with the gab. He could pretty much sell anything to anybody, and he worked at Harvey Norman in Broken Hill. But eventually he ended up back where you might say he belonged, doing what he liked and what he knew best. And he worked at a karaoke bar, good in hospitality, good in sales, anything to do with people. Mark just loved it. And of course, because he loved it, he excelled in it. Sadly, it was in Broken Hill where Mark and Naomi parted ways. He stayed on in Broken Hill, but eventually moved to Port Macquarie. It was years back when in Port Macquarie, Mark actually managed the big bowls club there. But this time, this move, he didn't work due to his health certainly not being the best. And it was through social media that Mark met up again with a girl he'd known for years back in Ballarat, and that ended up with them striking up a relationship. And Tamara, she headed up to Port Macquarie. That was 2.5 years ago, and they were certainly enjoying life together. But over the last 6 months, because of Mark's health, Tamara certainly gave him great care while he was sick and in and out of hospital. Mark had plans to come home this year. Sadly, he is home, but not the way he intended or the way you wanted. Today, we honour a life that was lived to the full and lived the way Mark wanted. He had his passions in life. He was a passionate Carlton fan, so right there, that tells you he was a pretty good bloke. Jim told me that he'd outdo any Collingwood fan any day of the week, so he was actually a crazy Carlton fan. Mark had the great loves in life. Georgia, certainly the first and greatest. His family, all his friends and all his mates. He filled his life with travel, with adventure, with entertaining, with music. He enjoyed it all, and there was never a dull moment. All the qualities and the strengths that Mark had in life, he used them, and he used them, as been said, to live it all. Some people, they seem to know or have a sense that they must live and pack everything into the years. It's as if they know that life is short. And 52 years, it is not enough life. It is not enough life, but it was Mark's life. And it was a life of value and worth, a life well worth remembering. And we're going to continue remembering now, and I'd like to start that off by firstly inviting Mark's sister, Regina, to come and share some of her thoughts with us. Thanks, Regina.
You've got to step because I'm short. Oh, sorry. Firstly, I'd like to start reading a piece that our mum and dad has written. Peace, perfect peace, our beautiful boy, all that is left are memories. May perpetual light shine upon you, and may you rest in peace. Amen. Love to you always and forever, Mum and Jimbo. Mark, you are more than just my brother. You were my hero. When I was little, I followed you around like a lost shadow, and you never complained. You made me feel like I was 10 foot tall and the most important person in your world every time. When you would walk into a room, everyone knew that you were there, as your personality was larger than life, and you certainly loved to be the centre of attention. We would talk for hours and hours on end about everything and anything, from the latest movie that you had gone to see at the pictures, to the fact that there was life outside of this earth. You certainly knew how to tell a yarn, and you never let the truth get in the way of that. You were able to keep a person's attention, and you believed in everything you were saying, which just made it that much more interesting to hear your words. You taught me to stand my ground and believe in what I was doing, even if it did get me into big trouble with Mum. I'd tell you about it later on, and you'd laugh at me and say, "Never with Mum, bub, never with Mum." You introduced me to music and songs that still today influence me when I hear them. And I remember you telling me like it was only yesterday the history of the song that we were listening to, or the band that was playing. You would randomly break into some verse, or you would bust a move, and you'd say, "Hey, bub, did you see that?" Jacko would be proud. We have shared tears over misery, and we have shared laughter with stories you would be telling. You were always good for a smile. You didn't give bad advice either. I will miss our talks, even if I couldn't get a word in edgewise, and I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles. You would always tell me to live my life. That's what we have it for. And you certainly did that. The adventures and the memories that you made in the 52 years that you were on this earth, and the difference with the different people that came into your life, and who would blame them. You were like a magnet. You drew everyone to your inner circle, and you loved everyone, and you loved life. You made sure that every single minute counted. Well, Mark, it is time to say farewell. I will not say goodbye, but I will always thank my lucky stars that I had you for my brother. I will love you lot. I have loved you lots, and I will miss you lots more for my days to come. Love, bub. Thank you. Okay. Just put me there.
Thanks, Regina. That was a lovely tribute to your brother. And Jamie, also Mark's brother, he has a few words of tribute that he'd like to share. So thank you, Jamie.
My dear brother, you are no saint, mate, but who is? And I love you dearly. Mark Anthony McHenry, aka Macca, Michael Jackson, Mark Bon Jovi, and I'm sure there are a lot more nicknames out there for him. His work cannot be described in one word. Anyone who ever met you would agree. But if I only had one word to describe him, mate, the word would be passionate. Passion for the countless hours of cricket we played against each other growing up in the backyard, the MCG, the McHenry cricket ground, in the driveway or at the park, where I'm sure the whole of the street would have heard your appeals, even when it wasn't even close. You put a DK Lily appeal to shame, mate. Passion for your love of music. I fondly remember the Beatles and Kiss concerts we had on the front porch at home, or over the road in the bottom room at Auntie Jan's with Ben and Paddy Bruce, complete with tennis rackets as guitars, brooms and mops as microphones. At kids' concerts, Mark, you're always Joan Simmons, with the makeup being supplied by Mum, not that she knew. The Beatles, especially John Lennon, Michael Jackson and Bon Jovi were some of Mark's favourites. He just loved music in general. He penned poems and songs himself over the years, and boy, he could sing. His fashion for his beloved blue baggers was immense. At the risk of annoying most McHenrys, at least it wasn't Collingwood. The last time we caught up in person was a weekend with my son and I. We met at Spencer Street, spent most of the afternoon at the Spencer Street bar in the train station, and then went to Etihad. After booking into the hotel, went to Etihad to watch Carlton and Geelong. Carlton led all night. Mark was his usual vocal self. But the Cats got home by a whisker at the end. Walking out of Etihad that night and walking to the hotel, Kate and I gave Mark a bit of curry. He was disgusted. We stopped it pretty quick for the sake of the good night that was to follow. Most of all, his passion towards the people he loved was paramount. If Mark loved you, you felt it. I'm so grateful for the way he blessed my wife Sam's and my children Letitia and Cade's heart with his passionate love. Mark adored Letitia and Cade, and they adored him. Mark, myself and my family will hold you in our hearts forever, and we will meet again. I truly believe that. And little brother, it's my shout. Love you, Mark. Rest in peace, mate.
Thank you, Jamie. I think you can see by the words, or at least the feelings that were put behind the words, that Mark was able to create a place in all of your hearts, and that he did have an understanding of how to live life, and most importantly, live it his way. And that's so important. And I'm sure these next words will also bear some of that out even more. I have these notes that have been sent to us by Naomi, and I'd like to share them with you, and I hope I can do some justice to them on her behalf. So I'll just read it as she has sent it, and she starts by saying, "My name is Naomi, and I am the mother of Mark's daughter, Georgia Clare. We reside in Sydney, and sadly we're on our way to Ballarat when the midnight lockdown Friday happened. Thanks, Dan. That was good of him, wasn't it? It's all still very surreal that Mark has passed away, and these words might be able to bridge the gap a little at his service. Mark and I met or collided in 1998 at a mining camp 7 hours south of Darwin. We were both there as part of the catering staff. Immediately we connected with our love of similar music with Bon Jovi and Kiss in the top 5. AFL was always on the agenda, and his beloved Carlton was evident in the clothes he wore, tattoos, and the damn navy and white objects all through our homes. We didn't officially become a couple until early 2000. And by then, we had started a 15-year relationship with no real ties to anywhere, living in great towns and both enjoying various jobs in hospitality. Our relationship was never boring, and between getting our next tattoos or planning our night to see live music concerts, Mark had a knack of attracting exciting and unique people and events into our lives. Our 4 weeks in New Zealand was definitely a highlight, and his work in Mount Hotham for a couple of seasons was never a chore because he embraced all the possibilities available and could talk to just about anyone. Mark, friendships came easy, but our relationship was often chaotic on many levels, and his insatiable energy for living and fast-forward approach to the next new task. 2 short breakups and we somehow found our way back together to bring an amazing human into our lives, and that's Georgia Clare. His life had changed for the better, and she became his world. He got to have many firsts with daddy-daughter times like a bus ride to the shops, enjoying story times with a crazy twist, being the dad at the school barbecues and sporting events, and even the early morning Easter egg hunts. Mark tested our relationship on many levels, but mostly landed on his feet with jobs in the many places we lived, and supported me when I started teaching, landing us in Broken Hill for 7 years. Unfortunately, we separated in early 2016, but he did his best to be present in Georgia's life as much as he could until Georgia and I moved to Sydney in early 2018. I don't think Mark really found his place after that. And even though Georgia did visit a couple of times back to the hill, Mark's own health and well-being started to falter. He managed to move back to Port Macquarie in mid-2019, and being in a new relationship seemed to allow Mark to find his spark again. Georgia did get to spend time with her dad more frequently, however. Mark somehow got a bit lost with trying to be a dad for Georgia and dealing with his own personal health catching up with him. After our relationship broke down, leaving Broken Hill, and finally the past being the past, Mark and I became mature enough to seek the best possible outcome for Georgia. The last text I received from Mark was this January, when Georgia and I were climbing Mount Kosciuszko. It was a genuine, warm birthday wish, and that's how I will remember it. telling Georgia that her dad had lost his life was the hardest conversation I've ever had with her. And I told her that his heart was so full of love for his daughter, but it needed his body wasn't happy about it. I'm not sure whether that's a typo or not. She's now 15 years old and in her own time will determine how she will remember her dad throughout the rest of her life. I am still ticked off, Mark, that you checked out early. And I now have to be a little stronger to ensure Georgia grows up to embrace everything in life she can handle. Her love of music, film, and playing the instruments was definitely your influence on her. And it certainly was an influence right from her younger years. And it's been a centre point in her high school education. I am angry because you were supposed to be there to see her finish HSC, get her licence and come to visit you whenever she chose to. I know you would have been in the front row for her musical performances, playing guitar, keyboard and singing. These are the things Mark has instilled in Georgia, and even though she never saw him join in with the band at the last hotel job he had, or have the karaoke solo, she will always be his legacy for his confidence and insatiable zest to embrace these things in her life. Mark and I had our favourite Bon Jovi song, Living on a Prayer. And I will never forget our euphoria hearing it live at a couple of live Bon Jovi concerts we saw. Now that he has taken his final bow, I finally understand why the song meant so much. Rest in peace, Mark, and keep a watch over Georgia. We remember in so many ways. Part of it is words, but part of it is also, I think, reflective time, and we're going to share some of that now, and we'll see some photographs unfold Mark's life. And as we do this, as I said, it lets you remember, but it lets you also feel the very spirit of Mark's life. So use this time well and remember. As sure as I live, I know I must die, and my passing may touch you deeply. But it's not my wish to hurt those I love. Have your sorrow if you must, but in remembering me, do it with a smile. For I hope my life in some small way has influenced you for the good. All that makes up life has been mine, and now I go, knowing you will carry proudly my heritage. So I take my reward of peace given by my passing. Knowing I leave you saddens me, but having you as part of my life gave me so much joy. And it is for this that I thank you. Mark left us on Thursday, February 4th, and our wish must be that he is at peace. And for us, we must let him go to that peace. Let him go with grace, with dignity, although Mark would probably have a bit more outrageous way that he would prefer to do it. But and I'm sure if it was possible, it might be like when he slid across the stage, Joe, kept going straight off the stage. That might have been a good way. But for us anyway, we have to give him that respect and that dignity. Before we say goodbye to Mark and let him go, let us join together in prayer. Pray that he is at peace. Pray that we have the courage to go on and face tomorrow. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And I think the only fitting way to let Mark go is to music. We now leave Mark in peace. With respect, we have bid him farewell. And thinking of him, we leave this place in quietness of spirit, and we go on to live with concern and affection for one another. Life and time passed, but the journey Mark has travelled, it has been protected by the kindness of many. His spirits lifted by the love of family, his strength replenished time and again by friendships. So again, I'd just like to thank you all you here present and all those that are taking the live stream. Thank you for honouring Mark's life in the very spirit in which he lived it. As we're leaving the chapel, of course, there is one more piece of music that I think it's been passed into law that we have to play. So we're going to do that right now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team all Carlton knows. We're all the champions. They like to send up. We'll keep our end up. And they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark blues.